Welcome back to Everything Sports with Aman. The podcast is here to stay. I just had to figure out some scheduling stuff, but now I'm going to start interviewing people, so be on the lookout for that. But for now, the daily content will obviously be on YouTube and TikTok, either in the form of shorts or the slightly longer episodes, or maybe 10 to 20 minutes, just little short ones every weekday, Monday through Friday. So be on the lookout for that, and then longer form content with the interviews and everything. They will be posted Saturday, so be on the lookout every Saturday. Sunday would be the only day where you get no new content from the Everything Sports with Aman channel. But today I'm going to be talking about NFL free agency so far, just react to all the storylines and all the signings so far, and then a little bit about the NBA towards the end of the episode. But without further ado, if you want to stay more connected to the podcast, you have um, on the top of your screen right now all the social media platforms, usernames. They're all listed up there. So make sure to go follow those if you want to stay more connected to the Everything Sports with Them on podcast. But without further ado, I want to start with the Cincinnati Bengals because I feel like they've had a history of not fumbling, but not paying their players when they're supposed to. Because Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks. He's been wanting a new contract for a while, and now all of a sudden they gave him permission to seek a trade because they couldn't agree on a contract extension. They have to let Jesse Bates go, and obviously Bates is still elite. And then Jamar Chase now. If you paid him when he wanted to get paid, you wouldn't have to say like we're gonna make him the highest paid non-quarterback, because now if Jamar Chase actually holds you guys to that, he's gonna get north of what Myles Garrett got, which seems absurd for a receiver. But then when you go look at it, just follow that up with the triple count. T. Higgins had a great year. Higgins and Chase are probably, it's not even crazy to say, with Joe Burrow at the quarterback, they're easily like one of the best trios in the NFL, and definitely, in my opinion, the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, because no one has dominated like that. And I say dominated individually because obviously their defense also needs a lot of work, and you don't see them making a lot of moves because now, as I mentioned, north of Myles Garrett contract, Myles Garrett initially requested a trade. The Browns quickly realized his value and made him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history at $40 million dollars a year. And so now what happens is, with the rest of the division trying to sign players, and I mean, the Bengals, they don't want to keep fracturing relationships because Joe Burrow would definitely want Chase to stay. He said he wants Higgins to stay, and now people are speaking out about how poor it is for the Bengals organization to give T. Higgins a franchise tag. And of course, you could still work out more contracts, more years, everything like that. It gives you more time. But if you're not going to trade him uh, and you still can't negotiate a contract with him, what happens if he gets injured? Because if he's out for a season, like whatever happens, is like you're assuming risk. You're taking that assumption of risk when you're playing football, and for any sport of that example, you're assuming the risk of getting injured each time you play the sport. That's just how it is. But now, in the case of that, if that happens, then all of a sudden, it's not a great look on the organization really, because you had money, you had enough money to pay Hendrickson when he asked to get paid. Same for Chase, same for T. Higgins, and obviously moved on Jesse Bates. I do get that because he is slightly older, but at the same time, you still should have kept him and paid him when he wanted to get paid. But now, because that didn't happen, we're in the situation where tag Higgins again. I hope he gets a long-term contract or still gets traded and gets a long-term contract somewhere. Chase, I mean, he deserves, I don't know. See, now he has leverage in a way because it does seem absurd to pay a receiver that much money, but at the same time, when the organization has publicly said we're going to make Jamar Chase the highest non-quarterback in NFL history, then now you're giving leverage to Chase to actually hold you to that word. Does he get paid north of 40 million? I don't know. We'll see. The Bills, obviously, they let go of a fan favorite in Mac Hollins, but Jordan Palmer, they that was a great signing. We'll see what happens with Amari Cooper, but I mean, the Bills, I feel like they're always going to be a very elite team. Another one is the Niners. I feel like Dre Greenlaw going to the Broncos, Talanoa Hufanga going to the Broncos, Aaron Banks going to the Packers, Travarius Ward going to the Colts, Kyle Juszczyk getting cut. All these fan favorites, all these players have made an insane impact to their team in at some point in the past maybe 4 or 5 years during their Super Bowl and NFC championship runs. And many people believe they're gonna try to get Cooper Kupp once he's released, because now reports came out with the Devontae Adams signing, the Rams are going to release Kupp if no trade is met. If they release Kupp, Kupp can now effectively say, I can go anywhere. And so he has been injured a lot, but pair him up next to Ayuk, I feel like he's gonna do well. But even then, now we got reports saying that the Dolphins and Niners have offered Joey Bosa a contract. I think Joey Bosa goes to the Niners, but if there's not any like big signing or anything that moves the needle for the Niners, presently constructed, I don't even think they're better than the Rams yet. And I honestly still pick the Rams regardless, because Devontae Adams still was doing well at a struggling Raiders team and a very struggling New York Jets team. And so now you pair him up next to Puka Nacua. On paper, it looks very, very deadly, because that's a combo, especially in fantasy football. That's going to be a very scary duo, especially with Matthew Stafford. I know he's old, but he can still definitely pass the ball. You have Kyron Williams, you have Tyler Higbee, both great running back and tight end, and now I know you traded part of your O line, and you still need to sign players on your defense to stop the run, because we saw, and I understand the Eagles O line is elite, but we saw how Saquon Barkley just absolutely demolished that defensive front for the LA Rams. But obviously, there's still a lot of promise with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, but with adding Devontae Adams, you have another elite pass catcher to that Stafford can throw to that isn't necessarily predicated on run blocking and everything like that. And I feel like that took a huge toll on Cooper Kupp's body, because he also had a dominant triple crown year. And I feel like, in my opinion, if the NFL MVP was not a quarterback award, Saquon should have won it this year, and Cooper Kupp should have won it his year, and Jamar Chase should have been Offensive Player of the Year. Saquon MVP. I feel like the Eagles have. I know it's a regular season award, but the fact that the Eagles did make it to the Super Bowl, eventually won the Super Bowl, you saw the difference Saquon made. Because without Saquon, and say there was Miles Sanders in the backfield, DeAndre Swift in the backfield, the Eagles' running game was still stagnant in many ways before Saquon got there. And now you put one of the best running backs before they signed with the Eagles. Before he signed with the Eagles, he was one of the best running backs in the league. And now with the Eagles, he's the best running back in the league. So now you put that in the backfield. And I mean, I think now with what happened, I feel like it was obvious to see how dominant he would be. The Giants, I mean, there's clips of like the GM's son saying you should draft Jaden Daniels. I don't pay attention too much to that, because they would have missed out on Malik Neighbors, but at the same time, a quarterback is more important, and you don't know if Jaden Daniels would have the same success in different systems, because many people have said it's all about opportunity, it's all about fit, because we've seen Baker Mayfield. The Browns moved on from him for honestly no reason at all. Deshaun Watson definitely did not work out until you saw Baker Mayfield bounce around, and then he fit the situation in Tampa, and he's flourishing there. And let's see if that happens with Sam Darnold, because the Vikings, it was a perfect system for him, and now the Vikings probably starting JJ McCarthy now, and so we'll see what Sam Darnold does in Seattle. But people saying it's overpay for him, I don't think so, because I feel like it was a similar Baker Mayfield situation where both quarterbacks were in the perfect situation and got paid for it and reciprocated for it after 1 year. And it's a contract very similar to Baker Mayfield. And the Seahawks' sudden teardown and rebuild, honestly, it was surprising. DK, I understand him requesting a trade, but I feel like if you just built that O line and protect Geno Smith, you could do well. And obviously, Geno Smith is older, wanted $40 to $45 million a year, so you did get the cheaper contract. But I feel like Geno Smith, in so many ways, is just a better football player than Sam Darnold. Obviously, Darnold went further, but he did stumble in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens because Darnold Darnold would want to win, and I don't know if he can do that in Seattle, to be honest with you. But Seattle was the perfect situation for Sam Darnold. But with DK Metcalf with the Steelers, I just hope everything falls into place because I really like DK Metcalf as a receiver, and obviously it hasn't worked out in Seattle since Russell Wilson left. And in that system, I think Mike Tomlin will have to do an insane job of managing the attitudes and egos. And now with Najee Harris gone, I feel like they could use Jalen Warren more. He is more of like kind of like a passing running back. So does he bring back Russell Wilson with the whole DK Metcalf situation, or sign a guy like Aaron Rodgers and then whatever other running back that you can get your hands on, maybe trade off for Ashton Genty or someone, or keep Jalen Warren because he does run well, and like I said, he's a passing running back. So like guys like Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson for like a few years, I feel like that would definitely do a great job. And I know Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin have some sort of connection there. And so, of the Steelers retooling, but brings it back to the Bengals of how everyone in the division is getting better. And now the Browns most likely will draft Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders or Jackson Dart, whatever QB you want. I'll do another whole NFL draft in-depth type of episode sooner or later. But I feel like everyone in the division's gonna get better. Baltimore, I'm not too sure what they're doing, to be honest with you, but almost everyone in the division's getting better. And then the Bengals, I mean, they've had slow starts for a lot of seasons now, and again, all you needed was a consistent defense to compete, and I don't know why the Bengals front office is not acting properly. Because even if you do sign Trey Hendrickson now, there's some sort of friction in that relationship. Same with T. Higgins, not necessarily Chase, because he is still under contract, and I think he knows his worth. I think the Bengals organization knows what he's worth, and even if you get Higgins back, there's some sort of fracture in that relationship because you franchise tagged him again, and there's just no long term stability for these players and for T. Higgins. But I mean, the Bengals, not many people know. Like, it might be a repeat of this past season, and it sucks because Joe Burrow's elite. He might have been MVP as well if the Bengals did make the playoffs because they started off so poorly. They lost to the New England Patriots, obviously a huge rebuilding team, making some good signings with Milton Williams, Harold Landry, and players like that. And the Niners, will see what happens there because obviously they're making moves to try and get Joey Bosa or Cooper Kupp and pay Brock Purdy as well. So that's just some of the storylines from NFL free agency. Of course, I will talk about it as time goes on. But now we go to the NBA. I'm just going to talk about it really quickly since the trade deadline. Obviously, the Lakers, Luka Doncic. I mean, as someone that's going to school in Dallas, like you could just see it on people's faces when it happened. There's obviously Fire Nico signs. SMU student section was chanting Fire Nico when they realized Nico Harrison was at the game. And obviously, fans saying that, like, obviously it's not right. But at the same time, Luka Doncic was a generational player. And the fact that he went to the Lakers, like, honestly, I get it. Defense wins championships, whatever you want. They talk about archetypes. But the fact that no one knew about it, it is kind of shady, but at the same time, like the new owners, again, if Mark Cuban wants to spend more time with his family, but I don't understand how casinos and real estate are are the future per se, but if the Mavericks just gut their team and all of a sudden just take a move to Vegas, then it's actually just going to hurt the city of Dallas because they're one of the most loyal fans, not only in basketball, but in sports. And Luka Doncic was already becoming a sports icon in the city before he got traded. And obviously, Kyrie Irving is now injured, torn ACL. Anthony Davis went out with a groin his literally first game with the Mavericks after dominating the Rockets, and now Klay Thompson's left like, what happened? Because he came to get easier shots with Luka and Kyrie. Luka is gone. Kyrie is now injured. He has a player option, so he could easily decline and bounce elsewhere because now at this point in Kyrie's career, he's injured. Hopefully, he comes back the same player. Many speculating he won't, but I mean, I feel like superstars like him, Kevin Durant, they'll have catastrophic injuries and bounce back from it. I hope he bounces back from it, but he might just take the money elsewhere, and then that leaves Anthony Davis wondering if he should stay in Dallas. And I know it feels weird to say considering he's only played like literally three-fourths of a game in Dallas. And now what happens to Klay Thompson? Does he request a trade back to Golden State? Like I don't think the Dallas front office would be mad with that. And going back to Mark Cuban, I get selling the team, but in a way, it's a reflection on him as well for doing that because these owners, Nico Harrison, like they've made continuously wrong decisions. Letting go of Jalen Brunson, not paying him $44 million a year because now, I mean, you got Luka and Brunson in the same draft, and they're both the best players of their respective organizations. Now, you had Kristaps Porzingis, you had a lot of these players that you just had to be patient and run it back with. And even if defense wins championships, look at. I know not all teams are the Warriors, not all teams coached like the Warriors, not all teams run like the Warriors. But you see what happened there. Steph Curry was the main guy. Even though they had Kevin Durant, Steph Curry was still the main guy. Even in 2015 and 2022, their defense was still very elite because they built around Steph Curry. You did that with Luka Doncic. The only reason why their record was average this year is because of injuries. And so once you get healthy, you just run it back. That's how it was supposed to be. You just made it to the finals last year. And I mean, this is unprecedented and honestly one of the most shocking trades that I can remember in NBA history. And so we'll see how it pans out. The Lakers, they did lose LeBron, so we'll see what happens. But as a duo, they were elite together. And another huge trade, Jimmy Butler. I believe they're 12-2 since the trade, 12-1 with Jimmy Butler because Jimmy Butler did miss that Sixers game when Quentin Grimes dropped 44. And now they've publicly stated they're gunning for the 6th seed, but now they're like 3 games behind the 5 seed, 4 games behind the 4 seed. And so the Grizzlies, Rockets, they've started winning. A lot of these teams started winning, and now you see these teams separated by a few games. It's going to be a crazy race to see who gets to play in. And I mean, after being the 11th seed before the trade and whatnot, now you add Jimmy Butler. They've been rolling. Obviously, they haven't faced opponents like that, but at the same time, you can only face who's in front of them because I feel like if you can make the argument without the trade and you were still playing these same teams, the Warriors wouldn't have had won so many clutch games. I mean, Curry is almost having he was never washed like people said because I mean, once you get triple teamed, there was no other killer or some player that made you nervous if you were the other team, other than Steph Curry. But now you have Steph, Jimmy Butler, Draymond playing at an all defensive level, and so obviously defensive player of the year is wide open now that Wemby is unfortunately injured, and so we'll see what happens there. It's going to be a crazy race to end the season in the West. The West is always crazy, and then the East is the East. But without further ado, thank you for tuning in to this first episode in a while. Make sure to tune into all of the new content going forward. Thanks for listening.